In this video, I will give some advice on how you can support your joints, and I will also talk about how this disease is treated in Tibetan medicine. This process gradually begins in all people, starting from the age of 25 to 30. As soon as our growth stops, it ends, we begin to gradually deteriorate. And there are factors that accelerate this progress. The first, most important one, is cold. When we are constantly freezing, when we constantly expose our joints to cold, the processes of destruction, dystrophic degenerative changes, are accelerated. From the perspective of Tibetan medicine, this disease is called the disease of cold. The second factor is a sedentary lifestyle. Each joint in our body is a separate organ that has its own internal anabolism and catabolism, and these processes must always be in balance. But when we move little, our processes of destruction begin to outpace the processes of recovery. This also leads to the acceleration of joint destruction. Thirdly, stress. Stress leads to constant tension. Tension disrupts lymph flow, blood flow in the joints of this separate organ, and this too starts to accelerate destructive processes. How can you help yourself? The first thing is to lose weight. Of course, if you have excess weight, then all the joints have excessive load, and this negatively affects this organ. Secondly, establish proper nutrition. What is proper nutrition from the perspective of joint health? It's balancing the intake in the diet of animal products, proteins, fats, various fibers, collagenous ones, such as jellied meat. They serve as sources of structural units of the joints themselves, and they also stimulate the work of the chondrocytes, which produce the necessary components for the joints themselves. Next, adding spices like ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, curry, turmeric, black pepper to the diet. These spices have anti-inflammatory properties because in our deteriorating joint, there is always some kind of lingering chronic inflammatory process. Activates the delivery of necessary components to the joint, activates microcirculation of blood, thins the blood, and so on. Overall, using all these spices is very beneficial for the longevity of our joints. Write in the comments if you have osteoarthritis. How do you eat? Do you change anything in your diet to reduce pain, slow down the process, etc.? Third, physical activity. Various types of exercises, especially Eastern ones, all have a very positive effect on the joints. Yoga. But there is one movement that I personally use in my life. It's the Joint Gymnastics of 1,000 Movements by Academician Amosov. Academician Amosov developed 1,000 movements, dividing all joints into 10 groups. And with each group of joints, you need to perform 100 movements. And 100 multiplied by 10 groups equals 1,000 movements. Fourth, there is one life hack used by Buryats and Mongols that people of age apply. It's rubbing badger fat into the joints. By the way, badger fat is sold in prescription pharmacies. I saw a bottle. It clearly says badger fat on top. You can rub it into all joints. And sunbathe. When ultraviolet rays hit the badger fat, it starts activating the components present in this fat. And badger fat has anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, healing, and regenerative effects. And the sun helps the fat penetrate deep into the joint. And this helps prolong the life of our joints. You can do this yourself. Now I will tell you how Tibetan medicine can help you. To start, here are 3 reviews from our patients. A lot of people come to our clinic with osteoarthritis, deforming arthrosis, who do not want to take many pills or undergo invasive treatment methods, and want to be treated by other means. Therefore, we have extensive experience in treating this disease. Now I will tell you what we treat with. First, the most important thing is, of course, acupuncture. The use of acupuncture very well restores natural processes in the joint and balances anabolic and catabolic processes, That is, it slows down aging and destruction of the joints. Massage is used to relieve the muscles that hold the joints. When the muscles are relieved, tension in the joints disappears, and this also contributes to better joint function. Osteopathy. This holistic practice considers the body as an integral system and triggers the body's own forces to slow down and reduce dystrophic degenerative changes in the joints. We also widely use phytotherapy. Phytotherapy achieves multiple effects. It eliminates chronic and subclinical systemic inflammatory processes. Second, it improves the internal anabolic processes in the joints, meaning it enhances the functioning of synovial membranes, the work of chondrocytes, which provide the necessary components to the joint itself, improves blood flow, lymph flow in the joints themselves. And phytotherapy activates internal self-regulatory mechanisms, and the body already employs its own strength to restore the destructive processes in the joints and slow down these processes. Tell me, can these phytopreparations be bought at a pharmacy or somewhere else? You know, I thought about that. Based on people's comments, who keep asking about herbal collections, I was thinking about how it could be done. But in Tibetan medicine, only a few herbal collections can be given without a prescription, without a doctor's consultation. Those preparations that I am talking about in this video, unfortunately, cannot. When I prescribe these medications, I maintain contact with the patient, and I monitor what happens to them afterward. That's important. Therefore, we cannot just hand out all the collections to everyone. As I mentioned earlier, since this disease in Tibetan medicine is considered a disease of cold, then logically, the cold needs to be removed from the body. And in Tibetan medicine, there is such a remedy called Taban Arshan, which translates as a collection of 5 herbs. Taban Arshan is used in our clinic for the treatment of this disease. With this disease, the following symptoms occur: joint pain that does not cause fever, morning stiffness in the joints, which goes away and disappears after half an hour to an hour of movement, and also deformity in the joints. This manifests in the late stages of osteoarthritis, but most often it starts in the hands. If the deformity appears in this joint, those are Heberden's nodes. If it appears in this one, those are Bouchard's nodes. The most visible signs of deforming osteoarthritis, but in women, it most often can start with the big toe on the foot, where the big toe connects with the metatarsal bone. Therefore, as soon as you notice these changes, you should immediately see a doctor. Stay healthy.